My Side of the Mountain, page 161, in which I cooperate with the ending. By the middle of March, I could have told you it was spring without looking. Jessie did not come around anymore. She was finishing the rewarding waters of the open stream. She was returning to a tree hollow full of babies. See? Jessie Coon James. I think we might have to rename her Jessica. She had babies. The Baron Weasel did not come by. There were salamanders and frogs to keep him busy. The chickadees sang alone, not in a winter group, and the skunks and the minks and foxes found food more abundant in the forest than at my treehouse. The circumstances that had brought us all together in the winter were no more. There was food on the land, and the snow was slipping away. By April, I was no longer living off my storehouse. There were bulbs, tubers, and greens to be had. Meals were varied once more. There were frogs' legs, eggs, and turtle soup on my table. I took my baths in the spring again rather than in the turtle shell with warmed over snow. I plunged regularly into the ice water of the spring, shouting as my breath was grabbed from my lungs. I scrubbed, ran for my tree, and dried myself before the fire, shouting as I stepped into my clothes. Then I would sing. I made up a lot of nice songs after my bath, one of which I taught to a man who was hiking along the top of the gorge one day. He said his name was Andrew, and he was quiet and tall. I found him sitting on the edge of the cliff, looking across the valley. He was humming little tunes. He had a sad smile that never went away. I knew I would not have to hide from him just by looking at him, so I walked up and I sat beside him. I taught him my cold water song. Please listen. I learned he wrote songs and that he was from New York. He had come to the Catskills for the Passover festivities and had wandered off for the day. He was about to go back when I sat down and said, "I heard you humming." "Yes," he said, "I hum a good deal. Can you hum?" "Yes," I replied, "I can hum. I hum a good deal too, and even sing, especially when I get out of the spring in the morning. Then I sing real loud." "Let's hear you sing." So I said, feeling very relaxed with the sun shining on my head, "All right, I'll sing you my cold water song." "I like that," Aaron said. "Sing it again." So I did. "Let me suggest a few changes." He changed a few words to fit the tune, and the tune to fit the words, and then we both sang it. "Mind if I use the hum, 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 dee, dee part?" he asked presently. "You can use it all," I said. "Tunes are free up here. I got that from the red-eyed vireo," which is probably a bird. He sat up and said, "What other songs are sung up here?" I whistled him the high chickadee song of the black-capped Mr. Brackett and the waterfall song of the wood thrush. He took out a card, lined it with 5 lines, and wrote in little marks. I stretched back in the sun and hummed the song of the brown thrasher and the barometer, the nuthatch. Then I boomed out the song of the great horned owl and stopped. "That's enough, isn't it?" I asked. "I guess so." He lay back and stretched, looked into the leaves, and said, "If I do something with this, I'll come back and play it to you. I'll bring my portable organ." "Fine," I said. And then after a drowsy pause, he said, "Will you be around these parts in the summer?" "I'll be around," I said. Aaron fell asleep and I rolled over in the sun. I liked him. He hadn't asked me one personal question. Oddly enough, I wasn't sure whether that made me glad or not, and then I thought of the words Frightful had spoken in my head. "You want to be found." And I began to wonder. I had sought out a human being. This would not have happened a year ago. I fell asleep, and when I awoke, Aaron was gone and Frightful was circling me. She saw me stir, swooped in, and sat on a rock beside me. I said, "Hi," but did not get up, just lay still listening to the birds and the snipes and the sputs of insects moving in dry leaves, and in the air stirring the newly leafing trees. Nothing went on in my head. I was comfortably blank. I knew the pleasures of the lizard on the log who knows where his next meal is coming from. I also knew his boredom. After an hour, I did have a thought. Aaron had said that he was up in the Catskills for Passover. Then it must be near Easter and Matt would be coming soon. I had not counted notches in a week. A cool shadow crossed my face and I arose, whistled for Frightful to come to my hand, and wandered slowly home, stuffing my pockets with spring beauty bulbs as I went. Several days later, I met Matt on Route 27 at 3:30. I tied his handkerchief around his eyes and led him stumbling and tripping up the mountain. I went almost directly home. I guess I didn't much care if he remembered how to get there or not. When I took off the blindfold, he looked around. Where are we? Where's your house? I sat down and motioned for him to sit. He did so with great willingness. In fact, he plopped. What do you sleep on, the ground? I pointed to the deerskin flaps moving in the wind of the hemlock. What do you do, live in a tree? Yep. Matt bounced to his feet and went in. I propped the door open so the light streamed in, and he shouted with joy. I lit the tallow candle, and we went over everything, and each invention he viewed with a shout. While I prepared trout baked in wild grape leaves, Matt sat on the bed and told me of the world news in brief. I listened with care to the trouble in Europe, the trouble in the Far East, the trouble in the South, and the trouble in America. That's kind of what the news usually says, huh? Trouble, trouble. Also, to a few sensational murders, some ball scores, and his report card. It all proves my point, I said sagely. People live too close together. Is that why you are here? Well, not exactly. The main reason is that I don't like to be dependent, particularly on electricity, rails, steam, oil, coal, machines, and all those things that can go wrong. Well, is that why you're up here? Well, not exactly. Some men climbed Mount Everest because it was there. Here is a wilderness. Is that why? Aw, come on, Matt. See that falcon? Hear those white-throated sparrows? Smell that skunk? Well, the falcon takes to the sky, the white-throated sparrow takes to the low bushes. The skunk takes to the earth. You take to the newspaper office. I take to the woods. Don't you get lonely?